to the first episode of Let's Hustle Homes with Hazel. It is something that I decided to do at the beginning of the year. Felt like I had something to say. I didn't know who I wanted to say it to or what I wanted to say. But after careful thought and meditation and just long walks wondering what's next in my life, I kind of ended here. Um, this show is here to help real estate agents, whether they're just starting out or they're seasoned agents, really get to the meat and potatoes of why they're in the business, helping people. That's really why a lot of people become real estate agents. That's the purest kind of way to help other people, is to help them find shelter. I know, obviously, that sounds super duper, you know, pie in the sky, but it really is what we do as real estate agents. Is we help people find homes that they can live in, live their lives in. And I think that's a very noble profession. And I think a lot of people need our services, especially if we're good at what we do. So I decided that I want to help other agents become top agents. I've been selling real estate for 21 years. I'll talk about all my credentials in a moment, but I just wanted to just ask your indulgence to let me babble a little bit about why this show now exists and why I'm hoping you enjoy it and subscribe and join me every week in sharing my thoughts and ideas and conversations with guests that I bring on to help us become better at what we do. Um, I guess I want to make sure that I talk about the name of the podcast first. Let's Hustle Homes with Hazel. Let's actually is an acronym. It's one that I came up with. I know it may sound corny, but let's means learn, execute, thrive, and succeed. Because that's really what I want to do. I want to help you achieve those things through watching this podcast and sharing your journey with me and me helping you as much as I can with the experience. And quite frankly, a lot of the mistakes I've made that I can help you guide you through this process of becoming a top agent. That's why this podcast exists. And so I want to tell you a little bit about myself, tell you why I think you should tune in every week. And hopefully at the end of this conversation, you'll feel the same way I do. Firstly, let me give you the credentials. As a real estate agent, you do have to sell yourself a little bit. I cringe a little bit when I do it because it feels, I'm full of myself. But I think it helps to put things into perspective and to say why I think I have a unique voice and an ability to take you to where you want to go, unlike anybody else, because am achieving those things that a lot of people who are in real estate want to achieve. Firstly, I've been selling real estate for 21 years. And I've lived through a lot of very not so great markets and some really great markets. So I have longevity and I have the breadth of experience that you would need from someone who's guiding you through real estate. I have sold 1,145 homes as of Friday. Yes, I keep a count. I didn't before, but now it's kind of fun to know just kind of how many people I've helped through my years in real estate. So I've sold a lot of homes. As a matter of fact, according to Real Trends, out of 1.5 million agents in the country, I am 105 in terms of transactions. So I tell my kids all the time, I'm kind of a big deal. And they don't believe me because I'm just mom to them, but I do a really good job at my chosen profession. I have plenty of accolades to prove it. I've been the top agent in my market with my local real estate association for the past 5 years. And on Wednesday, I'm going to find out if it's 6. So I've really been at the top of my game for a very long time. So I do feel like I am uniquely able to help guide you through real estate and help you grow as a real estate profession. So that's enough about all the accolades I have and why I think I'm such a great person to learn from in terms of real estate. I want to talk to you on a more personal level. I want to talk to you about myself as a person and who Hazel Shakur is and how she got to be a real estate agent in the state of Maryland, DC, and Virginia. So I guess I got to take you way back down memory lane. I was born in the Philippines. I like to say I'm a war baby. So my father was on I'm also an open book, so you're going to learn some things about me that some of you may not know. But um, my parents fell in love, and then my father kind of fell out of love with my mother, found someone else he loved more. And well, long story short, I was soon to be an orphan and going to an orphanage. But my adopted parents met me, they met me many times according to family lore. But the day that they found out that I was going to an orphanage, they were actually at a picnic, at a beach picnic in the Philippines, San Miguel base in the Philippines. And when they found out that I was going to be going to an orphanage, they decided, no, we can't let that happen. She's such a sweet, funny girl. They invited me to be there in their family. I was going to be a daughter in their family. And interestingly enough, when they invited me to do it, you would think, what kid would say yes? Uh-huh. This kid did. So I packed up everything that belonged to me in 2 paper bags, and I happily moved in with my family and my little sister. And at some point, there were 4 of us, and then eventually there were 5. So, I had an interesting start in life. But the one thing I will say is when I was adopted, my mother in particular always made every home we ever lived in feel like home. We didn't have a lot of money. So I found out later that most of the things that belong in our house, actually, she thrifted. She was a great thrifter, and I also love to find treasures, very much like her. Um, but she always made our home feel warm and comfortable, and all the things that a little girl who was homeless and an orphan needed to have early in her life. And so I got that from my mother. And we moved so many times. I mean, I think by the time I went to college, I'd gone to 11 different schools and probably, yeah, even more homes than that I lived in. But every home that I ever lived in felt like home to me. And it did not occur to me that one would ever live in one house for a very long time, because that's all I knew, is kind of moving from one home to the next. It was an adventure. I loved it. And wherever we lived, wherever we laid our head, my mother made it feel comfortable and warm. So that was me kind of becoming an American and moving to America, and figuring out what the American dream was all about. Um, so fast forward, I'm in college. I had gotten a full ride to American University. Shout out to AU. Um, and I had a freshman roommate before the roommate that would eventually become my best friend and the godmother to my children, and actually a coworker, Shelby Weaver. Shout out to her. But before I became her roommate, I was roommate with another girl, and I was also in many of the classes with her. Well, it was kind of interesting to me, and quite frankly, my jaw dropped when I realized that her parents were just writing a check 30 something years ago, $50,000 a year to go to American University for one of the 3 children that they had. And I could not get my head around the fact that people could write checks for that amount, because I knew her father was like an accountant. Her mom worked at the high school. So they didn't have these like really high powered jobs. So I didn't understand how they could afford to send their child to college like that. And then in the course of knowing her, I found out that her father actually inherited the home that they lived in. And when he inherited it, it was free and clear. There was no mortgage on it. So he was able to leverage the equity in that home to invest wisely so that he could amass the wealth that he had in order to send his 3 children to college by just signing a check every year. Um, and that was such a eye-opening moment. Now, firstly, I didn't know what a mortgage was, what equity was. I just didn't understand these things. I'm a child who I remember when I was a little girl, my mother would play this game with me, and I'd pretend I'd go to the bank, and she'd create little checks for me, and I would, write the little check like I saw her doing. But I honestly thought that was magic money, like the checks were like magic. It didn't occur to me that you worked and then you had to put money in the bank, and that's how you were able to write checks. So I was very naive about the world of finance and loans and mortgages and all of those things. So that was my first eye opener. And then, fast forward, I'd gotten a job in advertising, and I was kind of moving up in that company, and I actually supervised about 5 people at the time. And one of those guys, he was much younger than me, but he came to me one day and says, "You got to come to my new house. I bought a condo in Adams Morgan, which is a pretty nice area in DC." And I'm thinking, if this kid can buy a house, I know I can buy a house. So I became very determined. In fact, oftentimes I wake up January 1st and I decide that I'm going to do something important and big that year that's coming up. And in that year, I decided I was going to buy a house. This was January 1st. After seeing that this guy, who I thought I was quite frankly smarter than and more ambitious than, was able to buy himself a home, I knew I could buy myself a home. So got a part-time job at a gym, Washington Sports Club, and I saved money and I ate peanut butter and jelly and ramen. After swearing after college I would never eat those things again, but I had to because I had to save every penny so that I can buy my first home. And I was very fortunate to hire as my real estate agent someone I knew from the gym. He was a member at the gym, Ethan Carson, who is an amazing agent. And if you ever had the good fortune of being his client, then you were very lucky, because Ethan really took me and just helped me get through that process in a very stress free and magical way. I mean, it was a fun process. He really helped me think about what kind of home I needed. And he was very patient with me, uh, for lack of a better word, because I was definitely, probably still am a little bit extra in all things. As a matter of fact, I'll share this story with you, but um, my now husband, then boyfriend, was in law school. So at the settlement table, I made him read all 40 pages of the closing disclosure and closing documents. And it took about an hour. And Ethan, he just kind of took it in stride. He didn't tease me or make me feel, like I was wasting time. He went and got a cup of coffee, made some phone calls, while my husband, or then boyfriend, was reading these documents because I was worried that we were, kind of signing over our firstborn child or, something like that. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything in the fine print that would be harmful to me. Of course, now that I am a real estate agent, I understand that there's only a few things that you need to worry about in the closing document. That's your name is spelled correctly, that the address is correct, that the interest rate is correct, and that the mortgage payment that you're going to be paying for the next 30 years is accurate. Beyond that, you can't really change anything in a lender's loan documents. But I didn't know that then, and he indulged me in my 1 hour challenge to make sure that there was nothing in there that was going to be harmful to me or to my offspring at some later date. So I also loved Ethan because he kind of enrolled me in this program. I was saving all this money and amassed this little fortune that I never had before. And come to find out, I didn't need almost any of it. And I ended up having a $10,000 sitting in my bank account that I was not expecting to still have after the transaction because he put me in a program that gave me money for closing costs and down payment. And so, I was so enthralled at the idea of buying a home. I wasn't even paying attention to the entire process. And I felt I was in really good hands. I trusted Ethan, and he did a magnificent job. In fact, he danced at my wedding because he became a very good friend, and I really appreciated everything that he did for me. And it was from his example and having that experience with an amazing agent that made me want to do something similar later on down the line. Because it was a few years later that the opportunity to become a real estate agent actually came up. I was in a profession that required me to be out of the area 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. So when my husband and I decided we wanted to start a family, we knew that was not going to be possible if I was not home. So I needed to change professions. And at the time, my best friend from high school, she and her husband had started their own brokerage, Xanadu. So shout out to the late great Olivia Newton-John. If you know, you know. Xanadu was a real a boutique brokerage. And I went under their wing, and I was pregnant actually with my firstborn daughter, Asada, when I was in real estate school. I believe it was Long and Foster on Upper Northwest on Wisconsin Avenue, not too far from actually where I went to college. Um, I took the 2 week class and passed my exam first time out, which I'm very proud of because it's not always easy to do that. And I always tell new agents, don't beat yourself up too much if you don't pass the first time because there's some questions in there that you weren't even made aware of was going to be in there because it's just so much to know. Well, anyhow, 2 weeks later, I had, put myself in a position to get my license. And within a couple of months, because of the time that became an agent, it was definitely lots of real estate all the time happening. So I was able to have my first deal close within a couple of months, and then I just hustled. I hustled, and I just became a top producer, even in the Remax office that I belonged to after I left Xanadu because I love selling real estate. Well, firstly, I'm very nosy, and I like to see how people live and architecture and design and how people decorate their homes. So that satisfies that part of me. Again, like I said, I feel like I'm doing something amazing in life with my time. When I was a little girl, I used to think, oh, maybe I'll be a big superstar, a Broadway star in the movies, or, I'll be the president. You have the little kid dreams. But as I got older, I just decided I was going to be the very best at everything I did, whether it was being a wife, a mother, and eventually a real estate agent. I figured if I did all I could do to help people, find shelter and build generational wealth, then I was accomplishing something noble and good with my life. And I still feel that way. That's why I'm still, after 21 years, very excited with every transaction, with every client that I have. And I really dig in there and help them determine what their goals are and help them reach them as far as it relates to real estate. So anyhow, became a real estate agent, and I've just been, a very happy, challenged, enthusiastic real estate agent from the very beginning. And that's the kind of joy I want to help people build in their own long lasting career. That is why I started this podcast. That's why I'm able to and willing to coach other agents, whether they're starting out or seasoned. I'm just here for all of it to help as many people as they can help. So it's a way of me, really building a legacy. Now that my children are older, I've become thinking about that. What am I going to be known for? How are people going to remember me? And I like to be the person, the short little real estate lady with the loud voice that helped them buy their first home, sell that home, buy their next home, buy investment property, help them build the life that they had the privilege of living. One that's full of joy and heartache. That's life, but one that they have a place to call home. So that is what I'm about. That's what I'm trying to do here. So with that being said, my plan is to not only talk about real estate, but I have a series with a young woman who is just starting out in real estate. She actually has never sold a home, and she is joining my team. So we're going to take that journey with her of becoming a real estate agent. I also plan to bring other folks that I have had the privilege of learning from, who know a lot about real estate, who have interesting perspectives on how to provide the best service possible. That's the other thing that I really want to do. I want us to level up because honestly, there are times when I feel like real estate agents are just a little bit above used car salesmen. And that's not good. That's not how I run my business. That's not how a lot of people run their business. And I feel like as a collective, we need to improve this level of service that we give people and make sure that we take this profession seriously because it is serious. When you think about it, people are trusting you with the most important transaction in their life, literally buying a home that's worth a half a million, $1 million. And that's a lot of money. And it's a privilege that as a real estate agent, you should take very seriously. You should be, honing your craft, understanding all the regulations that are involved in selling real estate. These are things that you should be focusing on and really making sure that you are bringing your A game to the table. and helping your clients. So that's part of this series too, or this podcast is helping you understand what those things are and making sure that you are being the best agent that you can be. Um, so the final story I want to share with you because it really speaks to kind of the longevity in the market and building relationships with people and how those relationships generate more business down the line for you that you don't even know is going to happen. When I was in college, my roommate Shelby, who again is my best friend and a coworker, she had an aunt and uncle who had a house in Laurel, Maryland, and I was invited to their house for Thanksgiving. And I pulled up to the house, and it was probably the most beautiful house I've ever seen. At the time I was probably 19. And so I pull up, and the lawn was immaculate. I walked in, and the house is beautiful, beautifully decorated, light and airy, beautiful sunlight filtering through. The table was set for Thanksgiving. The basement was so much fun. Their names were Kenneth and Barbara. So they were Ken and Barbie, and they had a cute little sign in their basement with their Ken and Barbie names on it. And I took it all in, and I was thinking to myself, "Ah, one day I want to have a house just like this." And about 15 years later, my husband and I built our dream house, and we raised our family in that house. And interestingly enough, 10 years after that, they actually had me come and sell their house in Laurel and help them buy in an active adult community in Waldorf, Maryland. And I sold that house eventually for them as well. So all these years later, they are still my clients, still very dear. I reach out to them and check in on them, and I'm very privileged to have been their realtor for life, as they say, all these years. And that's what I want for you guys. I want you to have that satisfaction, that joy that I have because of the relationships I've built and the people I've helped throughout my career. So please tune in every week. It'll hopefully be entertaining, and definitely it should be informative. And keep in mind, it's my goal that, I'm going to let you be great. And what I mean by that is I'm going to, teach you things. You're going to learn. You're going to execute, because learning is one thing, but you actually have to go and do it. So I'm glad you're tuning in and you're absorbing what I'm telling you. But if you don't actually take action, then it's just something you watch in the background or background noise. It's got to be something that you execute, the things that you're learning. And I want you to thrive. Real estate, no matter what the market is, it's an industry that you can thrive in, because guess what? People always need shelter. They always need a roof over their head. That's never going to change. So we're always going to have a job. And if you're really good at your job, you're always going to have a job. There's, job security in that. And finally, I want you to succeed. I want you to build a long lasting career that has, work life balance, as they say. I want you to succeed in life. If you succeed in your career and you're failing in life, then that's not necessarily success to me. So my goal is to have you succeed both as a real estate professional and, achieve the goals you have in life. So please tune in. If you like what you've heard so far, please subscribe and like and comment, and join me next week.